Provincial Legislature's oversight mandate, Gauteng Provincial Legislature Committees have recently undertaken a process of assessing performance of the Provincial Government Departments and the GPL for the 2020-2021 financial year. During this time, portfolio and standing committees review the Auditor General's findings as well as performance reports of provincial government departments and their entities. Based on this assessment, committees engaged the departments in order to probe further on certain performance factors, as well as made recommendations aimed at improving overall service delivery in the province. I'm joined in the studio now by members of the Committee of Cogta and Human Settlements, Kedibone Diale-Tlabela. Kedibone, good morning, welcome to Power.
Good morning, Murio, and good morning to Baagi ba Gauteng and Power FM listeners.
And from the Standing Committee on Public Accounts, Brasox, Khanyile.
Thank you very much. Yeah, good morning. Thank you very much. Good morning to your listeners as well.
It's a pleasure to have you both. I think maybe let's just start on a principle level, because we understand that in terms of our constitution, we have what we call separation of powers, which is basically one of the cornerstones of our democracy, separation of powers, legislature, executive, and the judiciary. And the most important role of the legislature, it's an oversight, holding the executive to account. You play that role, isn't it? So, so Kedibone, can we talk on principle first before we get into the nitty-gritties? Because within the portfolio committees, they are made up of different political parties, but the executives, they are mainly made up of the governing party, isn't it? Now, you are expected to hold your comrades to account. How does it work? Do you guys do that diligently, holding your comrades to account within the executive?
Thank you very much, Murio. By the way, we are overseeing two departments, and both the departments are under MEC Maile, that is Cogta and Human Settlement. And to tell you the truth, when we are in portfolio committees as members coming from different parties, we in a true sense of it, we really become representatives of the people. And we forget that we are coming from different political parties. And as a result, I think we must invite you to one of our, just to see how we relate with one another and the kind of issues that we raise. We, in a true sense of it, we work together as colleagues, and we are able to then do what we are expected to do, and that is holding the executive accountable and ensure that on behalf of the people of Gauteng, we do the necessary oversight that is needed. So once you are a member of a portfolio committee, you then leave politics outside the door and deal with issues on behalf of people of Gauteng. And that's what we are elected to do as different public reps. So there are no politics in portfolio committees. Politics that are there, it's service delivery, ensuring that there's accountability, ensuring that there's transparency, and ensuring that government delivers on behalf of the people. So, and that's our role as a legislature. Remember, it's not only oversight that we deal with, we also are an institution that must make sure that we review the laws that are there. So part of the pillars that guide us as the legislature is lawmaking, ensure public participation. I think you have seen us across the province sometimes doing public participation, be it on different bills that will be coming from Parliament, and sometimes there are provincial bills, and sometimes reports like the ones that we are coming to discuss here today are supposed to be subjected to public scrutiny, and we should do public participation on them. So that's basically what we do. What we have introduced as new kids on the block in the legislature, and our committee especially, and it's doing very well on that, it's what we call rapid response tasks within our committee that is dealing with the daily queries of people of Gauteng on the two departments that we are overseeing, whether the municipality is not responding on one issue or the other in a particular part of Gauteng. We make sure that communities that engages with us through the legislature are responded to on time, and we've been doing that work very well. I know some will say, but you are not a claims court, but it's sort of dealing with the daily service delivery issues that people are faced with. Be it, remember, we are overseeing COGTA, COGTA that constitutionally is overseeing municipalities and should and must support municipalities.
Yes.
So we also deal with issues that different community members in different municipalities will have and will be able to raise with ourselves. We have petitions committee, and most of those petitions, especially here in Gauteng, are on what we oversee, which is Department of COGTA and Human Settlement. So we are from time to time overseeing that and making sure that there's response to the people of Gauteng, but also the department do what it's supposed to do. So the challenges are enormous. It's not easy, but it's doable. So that's basically what we are doing, and I can confirm today that we work well together as members of the legislature in the portfolio committee that I am chairing. So there are no politics. Politics are only in the house. Like when we do work,
you're focusing
really
on the service delivery.
On service delivery. Thank you very much.
I just decided to ask that principal question because it's important to establish. So I will do the same to Brasox Khanyile on the issue of political mandates, political mandates, and especially when coming to voting, for instance, and you find that people talk about people have to vote with their conscience, vis-a-vis voting based on the political mandates. Within portfolio committee, for instance, of SCOPA in the Gauteng legislature, do you find yourself being caught up in that quagmire that we experience as South African citizenry of people asking whether people are going to vote with their conscience or people are going to vote in line with the party mandate?
Yeah, thank you very much for the opportunity. Let me just start by saying that as you had said in your opening, there are portfolio committees, then there are standing committees. Portfolio committees in Gauteng, there are 10 of them because we've got 10 MECs, so they are aligned to MECs. And then the standing committees, which is where I am, we really deal with additional specific issues that we have to focus on. So our mandate is more on overseeing on financial management issues, public financial accountability and all that. And that's why we rely mainly on the reports of the Auditor General. Now, to come back to your question directly, is that yes, well, as Honorable Diale-Tlabela said, that the big issue for us is that as a committee that has got different political parties, I think we're the only one that has got all parties except the one small one. So as that committee, our big issue is how do we ensure that the public purse is spent properly and effectively. And remember, what we do is we're guided by two legislation, which is the Public Finance Management Act, which governs what all of government does, and then there's a finance management finance. It is called the Finance Management of Parliament and Provincial Legislatures Act, which normally governs Parliament and legislature. So even legislature accounts to us itself, and I'll explain that later. So in that sense, as long as we are guided by that, we together in the committee as different political parties, that's a big issue. Yes, when we've done with our report, when we've analyzed everything, we've agreed all what needs to be done, we take our reports to the legislature. Our report as a committee, there's consensus on it. But obviously, when we get there, when we debate reports from the departments direct, because it doesn't mean that because we're in a committee we discuss, then it's the end. We can still debate them in the house. That's where then people differ. They can come with other things. It's politics, basically. Yes. And so, yes, you are correct that at that level there is people see that thing. But when it comes to voting, when we're in the house, obviously parties decide who votes with who and how they vote. So it's very difficult to manage that. Yeah. But in committees, there are I don't remember instances where in a committee, for us to adopt the report, we had to vote. It's always on consensus.
Yeah. Interesting. We're having a conversation with the Chairperson of COGTA and Human Settlements in the province of Gauteng, Kedibone Diale-Tlabela, as well as the Standing Committee on Public Accounts, Brasox, who's are you chairing that standing committee?
Yes, I'm the chair of the Standing
chair,
Committee on Public Accounts, and then she's the chair of the Portfolio Committee.
Megid, when you mentioned something very interesting about the importance of public participation, that you don't just only play an oversight role, but you also make legislations and so on, but also, bring in the residents or the citizens of Gauteng to participate in shaping up laws and stuff. Just recently, for instance, on Saturday, just this past Saturday, at the City Hall, one of the portfolio committees, I think it's on the economic development, they were having this consultation processes in terms of the township economy and so on, which is an important thing. People came in numbers, they made contributions and so on. Now, the most important thing is that after that consultation process, what happened to that views expressed by different stakeholders?
For that question, Murio. Maybe to take it back to what I'm overseeing, lately, earlier this year, we did on behalf of Parliament, we're doing public participation on Municipal Structures Act. I think it's an issue of interest to the people, where we as a committee met with different stakeholders to make inputs on the Structures Act. The amendment was on appointment and recruitment and appointment of managers reporting directly to the municipal manager. Remember, there were issues around having the unskilled teachers becoming municipal managers or CFOs, just with a diploma in teaching grade 1s or grade 2s. And we've had such stories and different cases.
To be blunt, people are complaining about cadre deployment. That's why they got. That's why they got.
Yes. And I think part of what we do as lawmaking, I mean, politicians listened and they heard the cries, and that hence the necessitation that we need to then amend the Structures Act and look into how do we go about those processes. There were a lot of a few amendments made. So what we do is that we'll identify different stakeholders. You'd know in Gauteng we've got concentration of institutions of higher learning. Then we'll go there, in different universities just to get an input on a particular law. And then we'll go to the public in general. So we will identify different stakeholders and engage with them to make their own inputs. There you come present, and then people then make inputs. And we've moved around throughout the country. So what happens is that after they make input, we consolidate the report and we take it to the NCOP, National Council of Provinces. And as Gauteng, it will be either we're for the bill or we're not for the bill, and then we'll make your argument and submit it to that. And from there, then it goes to processes in the National Parliament to be approved. So that's basically what we do. Everybody in South Africa, as long as it's a South African, have a role to play in lawmaking. And we're encouraging people to participate in these processes. We're struggling, of course, to reach out to all, especially people in Gauteng on different bills because of one reason or the other. But then also that people believe that it's our sole mandate. Once you are elected, you are the one who must decide what becomes the law that governs South Africa. No, it's not like that. Ours is a public participatory democracy. All of us have a role to play, including children, have a voice in our democracy to say, this is how we want it done. And I think that's our role as a legislature, to ensure that people participate in that regard. We've had several, and also COVID introduced us to technology. I think we're trying to use all means possible to reach out to citizens of Gauteng in ensuring that they participate in the work that we do.
Indeed, in order to deepen our democracy, ladies and gentlemen, we know that we don't only wait for the day we exercise our adult suffrage to cast a vote, but even during these processes of consultations, that's how we deepen democracy. So that when we complain on media platforms and anywhere else, we can, say, I've been in this consultation process and I've raised these particular points, and probably they're not being considered. So participation, it's important. We're going to take a quick break. When we return, we'll ask Sochayile, Khanyile, about the issues of accountability when coming to the public purse. We know that there's been a lot in the media space pertaining to spending patterns in the Department of Health, in the Department of Education, and what role are they playing to make sure that the public purse is used accordingly.
Simplify it, one invest it. Yep, that's all we have to say. We simplify investing, so why not our advertising? Visit oneinvest.co.za to find out more. That's the number 1 followed by nvest.co.za. One Invest, the simpler way to invest. One Invest is an authorized FSP.
Galela oil is a hyper-immune boosting oil that has earned its stripes as a premier miracle healing oil of the 21st century. World-class research and some of the best international scientific minds have collaborated and helped catapult this potent immune booster to undoubtedly fight against disease and infection. Galela oil is developed from naturally homegrown medicinal plants and empowers your white body cells to overcome disease and infection. You cannot afford not to have a bottle of your own. Get yours online today at galelas.com or call 0111 000302.
Power Talk on Power 98.7.
All right, welcome back. 25 after the hour 10. 2 important portfolio committees and standing committees in the Gauteng Legislature, COGTA and Human Settlements, represented by the Chairperson here, Kedibone Diale-Tlabela, a Standing Committee on Public Accounts, represented by Chairperson Sochayile, Khanyile. I'm trying to be solid in terms of the name. We experienced this invisible enemy that devastated the world, that devastated our country, COVID-19. And a national state of disaster was declared. And obviously, as provinces, you had to align with the national program. Then there were issues, of monies when coming to health. There were serious challenges. We know that prosecutions that are going on through the special tribunal. What have you done as an oversight committee? What contributions did you make to make sure that you hold people accountable that transgressed in the processes, for instance, of procuring PPEs and any other discretions within the Gauteng department?
Yeah, thank you very much. Maybe I should take this opportunity to clarify something that is out there in the public discourse, which I always get confused with. And maybe those listeners who are there who understand it better than I do will explain it to me. There's this thing that there was an allocation of about 500 billion rand, which was abused. And it sounds like the whole 500 billion rand was. In fact, my understanding, and that's why I'm putting it out there, is that of the 500 billion, 200 billion was set aside as part of credit guarantees to banks, so that when there are problems, the government can go as a guarantee. I'm not sure if there was corruption there. I'm not sure. I'm saying that's part of it. The second one is that of the 70 billion, of that amount, 70 billion, you remember it was set aside more like as a temporary relief on tax, for SARS. It was set aside for SARS. I'm not sure if there was, because the Auditor General hasn't done, or according to the report we've received, he hasn't done audit on those 2 yet. So you are basically left with about 230 billion.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah. Yes, it is a lot of money. Yeah. But remember, about 40 billion of that was for TERS. There's that temporary employee relief scheme. Yes, there were problems. Yeah. And they've been reported all over. It was run at national, there were problems. Then the 40 billion is really money that was spent for some national departments, provincial departments, and municipalities. So if we were to to ask questions because these are the monies that were audited by the Auditor General. So you've got a report on what has happened. So that's the first thing I thought to clarify. And I'll be happy if some of your listeners, if they can help me understand this, because I've been trying to ask people I don't. But just going to come direct to your question. Yes, the Auditor General issued 2 reports, one in July and one in September, which were about the special report on what you found. In Gauteng in particular, let me just explain that what has happened is that in addition to these monies that were allocated to provinces, they're not allocated to all departments, as in Gauteng, for instance, not all departments. It was some departments, particularly health, education, and you name them. But then other departments had to use their own internal funds to refocus the monies for COVID. And that's why you had to go through some adjustments of the budget at the time.
Yes.
So with health and education, when we received the report from the AG, the only problem with the report of the AG, it came very late because we only received it this year. When remember, the audit was done in July and September last year. So we only received it this year because of some problems with the reporting lines. But anyway, that's when we received for Gauteng. I'm not talking about other provinces.
And problems with reporting lines within the AG's office or within your...
No, not within the AG, remember, issued the report at national level, went to parliament and produced, but then it had to come back because that report was a national perspective. You needed a provincial perspective. So trying to get that information, there's some other, it also depends on the rules of the legislature, how you process reports and all that. So in that process, what we did, when we now finally received the report from the AG, that's how we do oversight. First, we get the actual briefing from the AG, what we found and all that. Then from there, we do our own analysis as a committee to check what are the other things, what came out of some other places and all that. Then from there, we call the relevant departments.
Okay, we're going to hold it there on calling to govern our province, most important province, the economic hub of this country, and the people that are responsible to hold the executive accountable. So, Brasox will still continue in terms of, receiving the Auditor General's report and extrapolating it. And then from there, I'm not sure whether you're summoning or calling various departments. What happens in terms of that?
Yeah, I use the word call because what we do, we invite them. They must be led by the MEC because the MEC is the executive authority. So they come to the committee, obviously with the accounting officer of the HOD, to then answer questions of from the committee. So we've called them and asked them about what happened with the spending, the PPEs, the decontamination of schools, you name all those. But we discovered that these matters, and because of their nature, they've now been handed to the SIU for reporting. The Office of the Premier in Gauteng is responsible for investigation, forensic investigation. So if there are any forensic investigation, there's a unit that does that. But it works together with other bodies like the NPA, you name them and all that. So that's what it does. Yes, it does that. So some of them are in there. Now, as a legislator, we have then to, first, we wanted to be sure if there's action done, or action taken, sorry. But secondly,
by where the Premier's office.
At that time, remember, we engaged with the departments. When we discovered that, we called the Premier. The Premier came to the committee on September the 9th to give us an update on how far everything is. And then our responsibility now is to say, okay, are we satisfied that there's action? Number two, if there's action, let's be sure that it's followed up to the end. So we expect that the Premier should be able to come back and give us a report on what progress has been made. Right now, as we're dealing with the annual reports, some of those things came up. We've made some recommendations. Let me just tell you, the problem in health in particular is that they might find it difficult to deal with a number of them because most of their senior officials are acting. So I've said to them, as part of our recommendation, you must make sure that you fill up those positions, because if you've got those unstable positions, then you've got a problem of implementation and consequence management.
Yeah. Maybe on a practical note, in terms of your interface with the Premier's office and that unit that interfaces with law enforcement agencies like the SIU, the NPA and stuff, on the former health MEC, before he could be suspended and so on, and then let go from his portfolio as the MEC for health, Dr. Bandile Masuku. What role did your portfolio committee play?
Yeah, at the time when that incident happened, the Premier was on top of the issues. So we had to rely on the actions that the Premier, because at the time when they were told that the SIU has already been involved. So when the SIU is involved, there's very little that we can do because you must give them space to do it. So when the report came and the Premier worked on it, ours was just to ensure that there's action, there's follow-up. Obviously, there's still a lot of things that will need to be followed up on the matter.
Okay, let's go to Kokta now. Because at times, listening to our callers, the frustration about the reactive nature of portfolio committees. So I'm not sure whether, is there any way you can play a proactive role to make sure that some of the wrong things are not happening? Look at the crisis in municipalities like Mfuleni. We know the problems in Tshwane that we experienced and many other municipalities. And the Auditor General's report on the performance of the municipalities. So, Kedibone, is there any, or maybe let's just talk about the findings of the Auditor General, but also your findings in terms of the performance of the municipalities, especially those that performed badly. Any lessons learned? Is there something we can do differently going forward, especially after these local government elections? Mfuleni, for instance, it's chaos.
Yes, yeah. No, thank you very much, Murio, for that difficult question. I think maybe taking it from where Brasox left it. Remember, we are in a democracy. And maybe perhaps as South Africans, we need to discuss the kind of democracy we are in. And every institution have its role and its mandate. And to a certain extent, as lawmakers, there are things that there are laws that I subjectively believe that we need to review because I think when we were preparing for democracy, some of these things we did not anticipate. And that's why it will take long for an investigation of someone who sells RDP houses, for argument's sake. And we as a portfolio committee will get to know it from our constituencies that there's this thing. Then we will call the department. You know, the processes that you call the department, we hear there's this thing. How true is it? The department will say, we are investigating. Because it affects our employees or officials as the department, then the matter goes to the Premier's office for forensic audit, forensic investigations and other things. And because we are in a democracy, there's labor relations laws that must be followed. And as a result, we tend to not speedily for people to see immediately that there's something that you have done with this issue. Give report to the people, because there are things that we need to follow. Coming to what are we doing? Remember, we are individual members coming from different constituencies and different communities when we come together as a community, as a committee. And the Mfuleni issue, to tell you the truth, we found it on our table. And I think even the current MEC found it on his table in the office. And what is it that we've been doing with it is that the MEC, not only to Mfuleni, the department has put in place intervention teams. They call them provincial intervention teams to deal with challenges that different municipalities are faced with. And the Mfuleni situation has not been as easy as you might think it is. And I think in the reports presented to the portfolio committee by the MEC, there has been a steady improvement in trying to resolve the challenges of Mfuleni municipality. We have had several engagements also in different communities that I serve in with the communities there. There's a light at the end of the tunnel, you know. At least by now, the Department of COGTA in Gauteng has sifted out what might be the issues. And according to their report and what we've been seeing, also getting as presentation to our meetings, is that there's a steady improvement. This is one of those municipalities that really needed or need solid leadership. And the interventions that we've been trying to put there. Remember also provincial government is limited. Remember, there's a sphere of government also.
So Kedibone, yes, I do hear you there. But for instance, service delivery is quite important, and you guys play an oversight role, an important role where you need to hold MECs and other accounting officers to account. I just let's leave Mfuleni. We're talking about the complications. Hopefully something will be done in any other municipality. But let's look at, from an oversight point of view, you look at the people of Hammanskraal. Having not clean drinking water for years and years and years. When this report lands on a COGTA portfolio committee, what do we say to the people of Hammanskraal that have voted you into power in dealing with that?
You know, you are raising one of the issues that are very close to our hearts. We tried, and we are continuing to make sure that there's resolution on the issues of the water crisis in Hammanskraal. And I think you'd understand that municipalities are a sphere of government, and they have their own constitutional mandate. And remember, we are doing oversight, and the province is giving support to these municipalities. And in our engagement as a portfolio committee to Hammanskraal with the city, I mean, at some point we were demonstrated that the water is drinkable. And we even said to the individual, okay, it's drinkable, drink it.
And he declined to drink.
You know, let's see you see you drinking it, because you are saying it's drinkable, and the people are telling us it's not. And to tell you the truth, Murio, you know, when we announce that we are coming to a municipality or we are going to visit a particular project, so we sometimes do it unannounced. So where no one knows that we are there, and so that we are able to unearth the real challenges. And when you invite, they will mask it. But the truth of the matter is, I think, in where we are and what we get from the department, there seem to be progress, and we want to call upon the people of Hammanskraal that they should also push. We are pushing where we are, and there are. This thing of the water crisis is also unearthing a lot of challenges within the communities themselves. You know, the city will tell you that yes, we are trying to resolve issues, but there are water tankers, and I think there's been a deliberate effort made by our National Department of Water to ensure that not only Hammanskraal, there's also water challenges in West Rand and in Emfuleni. And I think ERVAT has been appointed to assist us and ensure that we deal with the challenges. It's many challenges, Murio, to tell you the truth. And we are trying hard.
That's why we elected you into these positions, to help us solve these problems. Okay, I wanna hand over to the city, to the residents of Gauteng now. They've been holding on for quite some time. Please put your headphones on so that colleagues, if we can just get straight to your points, because we don't have much time left. There are other important issues we need to touch base on. So please, when I put you live on the air, we are all fine. Don't ask us how we are, so that we can take as many calls as possible. Let's start with Thabo in Mamelodi. Thabo, your question, comment.
Yes, Murio money. Murio, look, until the day we get rid of fruitless and wasteful expenditure, we are going nowhere. Because if a person is going to deny millions of people the right to water, the right to service delivery and jobs, in the definition, it is called crime against humanity. Because of this is it's an act of denying people their rights. So this thing of fruitless and wasteful expenditure, it makes my blood boil every single day. These people are there with the intention of doing crime, nothing more else. And then now, they even went to the extent of even threatening the life of the Auditor General, because of clearly he was disturbing them before he was empowered. So let's go to legislation and get rid of fruitless and wasteful expenditure, and then put it as a crime against humanity. People will get in line. Thank you very much.
Yeah. So Brasox will respond to that. Butana Rosebank, your question, comment.
Murio and your guest there. You know, your guest looks like they've forgotten that they are in provincial government. Hopeless, incompetent, crooked government of the ANC. The Auditor General finding, in particular on COGTA, they can't even put together asset register. COGTA is the biggest department. If you can't put together an asset register, and we are on portfolio committee, you sound hopeless. Shalak Mataka there, they're having problems. Health department whistleblowers have been killed. And you are there making laws. Are we benefiting from that? You can't even tell us what happened with that 5 billion money. That was procured through WhatsApp. You tell us about 500 billion, and then you break it down. You try to confuse us. Come on, man. We need better people in this government.
Butana, Rosebank, Senzo, red report before we go to our guest to respond to some of the issues. Yep.
No,
Senzo? Yeah.
I'm hearing the chairperson is talking, but these departments will remain, but the chairpersons will always change because of different administrations. It is not the people, but it's the law that needs to be set there. If the AG can make recommendations to say these steps need to be taken, but they themselves, they are not amending their own position that they need to apply to, why should we believe what they are saying right now, that they are making changes? Because they're moving slowly. To make those changes and make effective, because if you are found guilty to say you were corrupt, it is not only civil, there also need to be criminal proceedings that need to take place, but they're protecting their own cadres.
Senzo report. Let's start with wasteful and fruitless expenditure. It's one of the biggest problems. And we thought, Brasox, that when the AG was given powers by the National Assembly to, extra powers to make sure that they don't just do findings and recommendations, but they also contribute towards, the criminal prosecutions. But the point raised by Thabo about wasteful and fruitless expenditure.
Yeah, let me just say first that I think if you can look at the books of Gauteng, the whole government, you'll find that fruitless and wasteful expenditure is very little compared to what we call irregular expenditure. In the past financial year, it was about 355 million rand. That is now the fruitless and wasteful expenditure. I think it's the ordinary language in the street that because it's fruitless, it means but the big problem is irregular. It's about 8 billion.
What is
that's where the problem is. With fruitless and wasteful expenditure, it's basic things like, for instance, let me give a practical example. Where you find a department hasn't paid interest on a certain, there's a court case, they delay, then they pay later. So those are basic things, that's what it is. But when it comes to irregular, that's where the problem comes. Because as I'm telling you, it was about 8.7 billion rand for just 1 year. The problem with that is that in irregular expenditure is that they use money for things that have not been are supposed to be used for. Sometimes, in most cases, you find that there is an actual asset that is there, but they didn't follow the process to procure it. Sometimes they break it down to smaller units because they can then not follow the process of SCM and all that. That's where the problem is, and that's what we must be dealing with. That's the area which you're referring to by the AG, where it was given an extra powers to deal with. It's called material irregularity. So the AG. That's why we are working with the AG as the scoper. We have agreed there are 5 departments in Gauteng that have a bigger problem around that, and we have identified them, which is health, education, infrastructure development, human settlement, and roads and transport. Because they are big. All of put together, they run about 95% of the budget of Gauteng. So we've identified this. So I want to say that, yes, we are dealing with it in that sense. But also I want to apologize to the listener who said I confused him about the 500 billion. I really apologize. The point I was trying to make is that there is problems of misspending of money, but we must be able to allocate it to deal with the problem properly. Lastly, I want to say that on this theme of the AG support, I think we have explained, the AG has given us a report of the budget. The AG is what we call the enabler of oversight. Our responsibility now is to take the matters up and see how. That's why we have relationship through the Office of the Premier with the SIU and that, because people must be arrested if they've used money wrongly. But lastly, on the issue of asset register, I think what is important to note, particularly with the human settlement, one of the problems they had in the past, I think 2-3 years ago, you remember there was a building and Bank of Lisbon, because they were keeping records, like manual records, which is wrong. I mean, government in Gauteng, we've got a department called eGov, which is supposed to assist also in ensuring that there's proper systems that are there. So we've tried to ask them to migrate with that, and they're in the process of doing so.
Interesting indeed. Kedibone, let's talk about the issue of service delivery. Housing, it's a big issue. But I just want to, as we speak now, we have people that were, area was flooded in Tshwane years ago. As we speak, the situation still remains. From a COGTA oversight point of view, how do you hold the city of Tshwane accountable? Because now the rains are falling, people are still not being, relocated to, decent facilities. How do you interface with the city of Tshwane on practical issues like that on service delivery?
Thank you very much, Murio. I think the issue of the Mamelodi flood, we've had a session with the community leaders there, as well as City of Tshwane and COGTA. And in our last meeting, when we had a meeting with community leaders, the City of Tshwane, remember, and there's the challenge we have, and I think one of the callers also confused what we do as a legislature and what government do. People see us as one, and from time to time when we interface with the people as a legislator, people will think you are government. Yeah, and there's a huge difference between myself and the MEC. I oversee what the MEC do, including my colleagues within the portfolio committee. So we have had sessions where we were requesting a report, and the city's representative in that meeting made us believe that there are processes underway to ensure, because apparently there's land that is secured for the Mamelodi floods. I think what we clarified as a portfolio committee is that it will not be easy for them to get houses immediately because of the backlog that we have. And we appeal to the department that when you go to public platforms, tell the people the truth. When you are number 100 on the list, you are number 100. No matter how much you would want to toy, there's number 1 and number 99 who are still to get a house before you. And I think community leaders that we met with were understanding, and they were happy that we're telling them the truth, because there's a process that government follows. And because it's different spheres of government, each one is independent from one another. There are things that the city of Tshwane must do, and there are things that the provincial government must do to give support. And when those things are not in place, then the people then get to not get services. And that's what we are trying to push. And that's what we do from time to time. When there's a challenge in a municipality, we'll make sure that we call representatives of the municipality. We also call representative of the provincial government to be there so that the issues are clarified. But from where I'm sitting, when the administrator was still in Tshwane, there was a process that was followed and land was secured to ensure the moving of individuals from the church to an identified land. And I think there's a group that has been moved and there's a group that is not moved. But also to appeal to community leaders and community members is that Kedibone Diale-Tlabela won't be on the ground when the work is done, when people are moved around. Because when we move, and Murio, this is a challenge. You'll say people are on the bench of what is the Alexander Jeske River. You remove them and take them to a secure, safe place, and then there's new ones coming there. Or those ones who got the houses and the new places will leave those houses and go back to Jeske River and rent out the houses and the places that government has given them.
There's a scheme, and that's really, really terrible. Something needs to be done.
Hence,
because of
we
time.
are appealing to community members that let's also be the eyes and ears of ourselves, because this is our country.
Yeah.
And when we allow individuals to hijack this democracy, we will be left with nothing. And there's a challenge that human settlement is faced with, that from time to time we're trying. And I think I want to say that, and I said, we seem to be getting there. The new leadership within human settlement and COCTA is doing very well. Our challenge is only in municipalities with municipality issues. The challenge it's greatly in human settlement, but we have an MEC that is committed. We have an HOD that is committed. There's a turnaround strategy that they've put in place, but the road is too deep. And the road is perpetuated by also community members, by buying houses. And RDP house in South Africa is not for sale. So we are appealing to communities that let's also be the watchdogs of what is happening in our communities. We have cases, we can't move because we don't have evidence. We're told Murio sells houses. And when you say where's evidence, because our law enforcement agencies want that evidence, you can't get that. And then Bomurio continue to perpetuate crime and do all these wrong things. And when Bomurio are not qualifying beneficiaries, so we are calling upon them that they must help us fight crime and corruption in our province, and we'll have a better province, I tell you.
Time is too short when we're having fun.
My apologies, but I felt I should not leave the studio without emphasizing the role and responsibilities of community members.
My apologies to Puleng as well in Midrand, because we're out of time. But by the way, this feature, it's happening again next week for the coming 4 weeks. So it's going to be very interesting, because the government, it's coming to face its people. So this is not the end of it. The legislature, I beg your pardon, that's not government. Government is the executive. The legislature will be touched with the people. This is part of the consultation, I guess, Prasox. So let me thank you very much. That was an important question I needed to ask, but maybe just in 30 seconds. We had a problem with Charlotte Maxeke. We had the professor who wrote an open letter to the president and the minister about Charlotte Maxeke, and to say, why are things not being done? The fire, the floods, and they are told that the budget issues until next year and so on. Can some deviations be done from a public accounts point of view to make sure that things are fixed at Charlotte Maxeke?
Deviations can be done. You just apply to the Gauteng Provincial Treasury. They can process it. But I think because of shortage of time, you are going to have the Chairperson of Health and the Chairperson of Finance coming here. You can be able to ask them further. But the truth of the matter is that the problem with Charlotte Maxeke is that there are a lot of stakeholders that must be involved, and you must be able to do things properly, because you can't just do a shoddy work and try to fix things half-heartedly, so you must be able to do completely.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, the Chairperson for Portfolio Committee of Health will be here. I think it's an important question. Let me thank you very much for joining us this morning. We are out of time. It's a touch after 11. Katlawole Hodi standing by with the news.
News. In our top stories at this hour,
The damage to businesses, particularly small businesses, the impact